covered in red oil. The bear wrapped its jaws around Jonathan's face, pulling and pulling with all its might. Its towering body lay heavy on John's helpless carcass. John pulled at the bear's hide, digging his nails into its neck to no avail. It only seemed to intensify the brutal mauling. Blinded by the cloud, John knew his last form of defense was futile. He missed its face and sprayed against the wind. The chemical came right back to him, moments before the angry bear took him down. What's up, guys? Iceman here. So this story is about a couple from Michigan who got attacked by a freaking black bear. It was a brutal mauling, and I'm looking forward to going over it with you guys. But I'd first off like to thank you for all your generous support on this channel. And if you want to help me out, you can hit the like button and subscribe to the page, and hit the bell so you're notified next time I post a video. You can also become a patron or a channel member. Links in the description below. But before I bore you with these bearing details, let's get into this bear of a story. John and Melanie were avid outdoors people. They loved nature and loved animals. In their late 30s, they decided against having children. John had a computer repair business that he ran from home, and Melanie would sell things she would make by hand online. They both decided that their lifestyle was too busy for children, and John was always a cheapwad, which was another variable. They had pets to keep them company, a small terrier and a cockatoo. They'd bring in rescue animals, often mending their ailments and freeing them back into the wild later. They had a sort of fascination with the wild, and in particular, bears, which is partly what led them to embark on a purchase of 80 acres of land in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. John's late uncle had owned a cabin in the area, and John had fond memories of visiting when he was a child. He remembered seeing massive black bears at a local ice cream shop, only meters away from where their picnic tables sat, rummaging through the shop's dumpsters. He recalled seeing 4 to 5 bears at once, some very large, maybe up to 800 pounds, likely due to their unusual diet. There are an estimated 10,700 black bears in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. The population has greatly increased in the last decade, and human bear incidents are becoming increasingly common. Diverse forests, with some clearings, supporting a variety of fruit and nut-producing shrubs, are the habitats favored by black bears. During the fall, as the bears prepare for their long period of winter torpor, they enter a phase known as hyperphagia, where they eat up to 20,000 calories per day and pursue food for more than 20 hours at a time. In more populated areas, black bears are commonly seen eating the fattening seeds left at feeders for birds. Suet blocks, the high-fat birdseed cakes, are prized by roving black bears as concentrated sources of nourishment. A bear can smell suet more than a mile away. When meeting a black bear, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources advises to never run, but slowly back away from the bear. If necessary, raise your arms to look larger and shout to intimidate the bear. If necessary, against a black bear, you should try to fight back. John and Melanie's first trip out to the newly purchased land was an exciting day for both of them. The drive was long and tedious, hauling a pull-behind for the 10-hour journey, crossing the Great Mackinac Bridge and venturing into the vast unknown. The land had a small, unfinished cabin. For now, they intended to sleep in their trailer and get a feel for the new lot of land, to enjoy nature and venture around the nearby towns, maybe gather some local wildlife information and get to know the locals. This is just what we've dreamed of, Melanie stated with glee as they pulled onto the easement. The 2-track driveway was long and overgrown with grass. They could hear the birds chirping and saw some deer on their way in. A very secluded area, just what they were looking for. They made use of the fire pit that night, had a nice evening in the late September wilderness. Melanie saw something in the distance, in her peripheral vision. Something large and black, some movement. The fire was beginning to dim, and they had a hard time making out what it was. Possibly a moose, or maybe a black bear, but it seemed quite large. They began packing up to call it a night, and again they noticed something, this time crossing between them and the camper, which was about 40 feet away. It stopped for a moment, but kept moving, something stalking them. John yelled into the night, toward the dark shape. "Hey, he shouted. No response. Again, the creature faded into the darkness. They rushed back to their trailer and slammed the door behind them. Several days passed with no incident, no sign of the creature. They discovered tracks in the dirt surrounding their fire pit and figured it was just a curious bear looking for scraps. They started working on their cabin in the following days, getting more and more comfortable on their new lot of land, but made sure to carry the bear spray with them everywhere they went. It wasn't until the fourth evening that another incident occurred. Melanie was showering in the camper while John was chopping firewood at the cusp of darkness. His palms sweaty from the exhausting labor, he took a break and walked over to the forest edge to relieve himself. He turned back to return to his chopping when he noticed a creature at the corner of his eye, near where his axe lay. The curious bear seemed unfazed by him as it nosed to the ground and snuffed around the site. John did the one thing you don't want to do upon the sight of a bear. He ran. The bear instantly darted after him as he fumbled with his pepper spray, trying to unlatch it from his belt. Camper in sight, John felt a massive blow to his lower legs as the bear tackled him to the ground from behind. He screamed in agony as he kicked and shook, the bear then wrapping its jaws around his lower back and thrusting him around like a pit bull. John had the pepper spray in his left hand and began spraying with little hesitation. I couldn't think clearly. I just wanted it off of me, John said about the incident. The red, thick mist spewed out of the aerosol can, dousing the surrounding area, along with John himself. The bear continued to shake him as he was spraying, and the intense action only seemed to make things worse. The spray never got onto the bear's face, but only its torso and underbelly. John, on the other hand, had it all over himself. He emptied the can completely, and the bear snorted and huffed over the gas, but then lurched on top of John and began digging into him with its sharp, bacteria-filled claws. Melanie heard the screams over the sound of the small camper shower. Heart beating in her throat, she threw on her bathrobe and ran outside barefoot. 30 feet ahead of her, she could see the gruesome sight of the red and black bear tearing apart what seemed to be a man. I was terrified, but I knew it was my husband, and there was no time to think. I could see the axe notched in the logs he was chopping, so in my bare feet and towel I ran to it and ripped it out. A crazy sensation of fear and terror and imminency came over me, and without planning it, I charged the bear, yelling profanities. The bear, upon seeing the angry charge, released John. It hesitated for a moment, as if weighing his options. Quickly, the bear decided to make his escape to the nearby brush. Melanie dropped the axe and ran to her husband, hugging him tightly while helping him sit up, getting some of the red irritant film on her as well. Melanie drove John to the nearest urgent care facility, which was a 45-minute drive from their cabin. By the time they'd arrived, John was in good spirits and optimistic about his recovery. Although in significant pain, he had relatively minor wounds. While waiting in the ER, he got online and ordered a boomstick to be delivered to a local dealer. Jeez, what do you guys think about that story? You know, thank goodness that John ended up ordering a boomstick at the end, because I couldn't help but wonder where the heck were the boomsticks at? And what are you doing chopping wood at dusk without protection? Now, I feel like I've read stuff on the internet about how some bears are actually attracted to pepper spray. Like if it's on the ground in an area, they might sniff around it and lick it up or something. But of course, if used properly, in general it does a pretty good job. But this is just one example of how things can still go haywire. Black bears are certainly a force to be reckoned with, and I would never underestimate one personally. I feel like if I were out in such country, I'd have like a 44 or a 357, if you know what I mean. But fortunately, this couple did okay. But let me know your thoughts on this situation. What do you think could have been done differently to prevent it? And have you ever had an encounter with a bear yourself? Let me know in the comments below, and like this video if you will, for more chilling tales from the Iceman.